Well, let's go to that plan then. This is the plan that was given to Chris Bowen when he came to power. He needed to get to 43% emissions reduction. That's what Labor had promised. If we'd listened to the UN, we should have gone harder, but that was what they promised. And this is the way they said they'd do it. One of the things that I think has now come to light, which wasn't really in people's consciousness before, is the amount of transmission lines you need. And you need these for the simple fact that solar energy or the solar resource, the wind resource cannot be transported. You've got to turn it into electricity on the spot, unlike, say, a coal mine or where you drill for gas. You can send it by train or by pipeline. You can't do that. So you need to have this generation network widely distributed, and means we've got to, they say, double the size of our grid, probably more, in order to do with that.
Yeah, I think this is one of the really disturbing parts of this plan. The Eastern Grid in Australia, our Eastern Grid is already one of the most complex and highly integrated machines in the world. Some people would argue that there isn't a more complex electricity grid anywhere in the world already. But if you just think of it from the point of view of the engineering and what it is a remarkable machine. It is able to take electrons all the way, not the physical electrons, but the power that's associated with them, all the way from the coal plants in Queensland to keep Adelaide with air conditioning at night when there is not enough electricity available in the grid. This is a remarkable machine. The problem is that intermittent resources are dilute. And by dilute, we mean that they use up a lot of land area and they use up a lot of physical resources in order to be successful. And because they have that characteristic, you want to place them in places where they are not going to be invaded by the building of cities or the building of large infrastructure. So the expansion of the grid is really to expand the area from which we can collect these dilute resources. So in contrast, for example, to a nuclear plant, which has got a tiny footprint, similar to a black coal plant in the Hunter Valley, for example, but without the hole in the ground for the coal next to it, you can place a nuclear plant. So in principle, if nuclear was not simply banned in Australia and the rational choice was made to adopt nuclear, we could retrofit nuclear plants on the closing black coal plants and other plants around Australia.
Yeah, let's come on to nuclear in a moment. First of all, let's just finish off with the plan in front of Chris Bowen. The other problem that's never really accounted for is the problem of the amount of minerals, the amount of resources that are needed for this new energy system. The amount of metal, refined metal and cement needed for wind and solar plants is not inconsiderable. And then you add that for batteries, again, where many more minerals are needed. Now, take a car battery on the average electric vehicle, for example. So we're talking about your average Tesla battery. I'm told that requires 11.3 tonnes of brine to make the lithium, 13.6 tonnes of ore for the cobalt, 2.3 tonnes of ore for the nickel, and 11.3 tonnes of ore for the copper. That's about 43 tonnes of stuff you've got to dig out of the ground and process. You add to that the overburden and the loose rock or whatever you pick up around it. You're digging up around 250 tonnes of minerals just for one battery.